Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of algebra. Today we're going to be learning how to do order of operations and how to evaluate expressions. Okay, so last year you learned that the order of operations, we use the acronym Pemdas. So let me write this down. So we have P-E-M-D-A-S, okay? And I like to write it like this because I'll show you in a minute what the M and the D and the A and the S next to each other means. So the P in PEMDAS stands for parentheses, okay? But what we're going to find out this year is it's going to be any grouping symbol. So parentheses, the E, the next thing we would do is any exponent, okay? M and D is multiplication and division. However, the order, if they're at the same level, so if you have a division that comes first, so if I said 12 divided by 4 times 6, okay, they're at the same level. So in this example, you would actually go from left to right, and you would do your 12 divided by 4, which is 3, and then you would do your 3 times 6, and that's how you would get your 18, okay? So multiplication and division are at the same level, and addition and subtraction are also at the same level. So meaning if you had a problem that had addition and subtraction in it, you would start from left to right. 12 minus 3 is 9, and then 9 plus 6 would be 15. Okay, so this year we're going to learn how to take what you've learned in past years, and we're going to add in brackets, absolute value bars, and radicals. Okay, so the P in PEMDAS is more than parentheses. It is any grouping symbol. So we're going to write the word grouping in here. Okay, and now we're going to follow PEMDAS. So to do this, okay, we're going to start out and we're going to look at our problem in number 1. We don't have any parentheses, we don't have any exponents, but we do have multiplication. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 5, and I get 15. Okay, now the next line, I've got addition and subtraction, so I'm just going to go from left to right. So I have 37 minus 16, and then my final answer would be 21. Okay, so at any point, if you want to try some problems, I suggest pausing the video and then going ahead with it. I'm going to go kind of fast, so if you need to pause, please pause and write anything down. Okay, so number 2, if I look at the problem, I don't have any parentheses, but I do have an exponent. So this is 10 plus, I evaluate 5 to the third, or 5 cubed, and I get 125. All right, now I don't have any multiplication, but I do have division. So this is 10 plus 5 minus 7. I have just addition and subtraction, so I go from left to right. 15 minus 7, my final answer would be 8. All right, number 3, I do have a grouping symbol. I have parentheses, so I'm going to start inside the parentheses and follow my order of operation. 4 cubed is going to be 64, and 6 squared is 36. So I'll do my exponents first. I continue with my grouping symbol. 64 plus 36 is 100, and then my 100 divided by 2 will give me my final answer of 50. All right, number 4, we've got nested grouping symbols. So we've got grouping inside of grouping. So we're going to start at our innermost grouping, and we're going to follow our order of operations there. So the first thing we're actually going to do is 9 squared. So I'm going to rewrite the problem with the brackets and the parentheses, but I'm going to evaluate 9 squared, and I get 81. Okay, and then at this point, I can also evaluate 3 to the third, and it's divided by 2. Okay, so I've got 5 times, and this is going to be 5 bracket, and then I have 85 minus the 27, close bracket, divided by 2. And remember, the brackets act just like parentheses. 5 times 85, well, first I have to say 85 minus 27, so this is going to be 5 times 58 divided by 2. 5 times 58 is 290. 290 divided by 2 is going to give me 145. All right, with number 5, we're a little tight for space here. Okay, I don't have any parentheses. I do have an exponent. 3 to the 4th power is 81. It's 81 minus 8 divided by 8 thirds plus 6. All right, so next we're going to do division. Now remember from our warm-up today when we reviewed fractions, if you divide fractions, you're actually taking it and turning it into a multiplication problem and finding the reciprocal. Okay, so we're going to take 8/3 and we're going to turn it into 3/8. Okay, and when we do that, we get 24/8, which is equal to 3. Okay, so this is 81 minus 3 plus 6. Now our 81 minus 3, subtraction would come first because it's left to right. And we've got 78 plus 6 for a final answer of 84. All right. With number 6, we don't have any parentheses. Although we have the parentheses here, this is actually multiplication. So keep that in mind when you have two numbers with parentheses like that. That's really multiplication, and it works like that when you're doing the order of operations. So in this example, we are going to go from left to right and do our division first. So it's -4 plus 8, okay? And then 8 times 4 is -32. So our -4 plus 8, we go from left to right, is going to give us 4. Whoops, that's a funny little line there. Let's erase that. Not sure where that came from. Okay, so -4 plus 8 is +4 minus 32 for our final answer of -28. Okay. So now we've got some examples. We have expressions with variables, and we want to use whatever the replacement is. So if I look at this, it's saying a 9m minus 2n given m is -4 and n is 2. Okay, so I want you to rewrite this expression substituting in your m, which is a -4, and then your n is 2. And then you follow your order of operations. Anytime you have a number, a time with the parentheses next to it, just means multiplication. So in this example, we'd get -36 minus 4. And now we subtract 4 and we get a -40. Okay, we do the same thing with number 8. We just plug in the values. So our x is -6. So we're going to be really careful here. We're going to put -6 in parentheses like that, -3 times 2/3. And that's going to be divided by 2. Okay, and the reason I put the -6 in parentheses is because you're going to be squaring -6, which is -6 times -6. And when we do that, a negative times a negative gives us a positive. However, if you use the calculator, you have to put it in parentheses, because if you don't, and you do this in your calculator to evaluate it, you're going to get an answer of -36, which is incorrect. But what the calculator is doing is taking 6 and squaring it and getting 36, and then taking the negative of it. So be careful when you use your calculator that you actually put the number -6 into parentheses. Okay, so now we've got our absolute value bars here. We're going to evaluate the exponent. We get 36. And then 3 times 2/3, okay, would be 3/1 times 2/3. Remember, we did our fractions. That's 6/3, and that's 2. So we've got 36 minus 2 divided by 2. 36 minus 2 is 34. 34 divided by 2 would be 17. Okay, so let's look at number 9. All right, now we have a fraction bar, so that's working like a grouping. You're going to keep the numerator separate from the denominator, but you're going to plug your values in. So you got 4 times -5 minus y squared. Remember, when we have that y and it's negative, we want to make sure we put it in parentheses. And that's all divided by 7 plus a -3. So you can evaluate the numerator and the denominator separately as two different expressions and then simplify it at the end. But we're going to follow order of operations, and we get -3 squared. So we've got 4 times -5 minus 9. And this is going to be divided by 7 plus -3 is 4. So this would be -20 minus 9 divided by 4. Well, -20 minus 9 is -29. And the final answer is -29/4. Remember, we don't need to take that fraction and put it into a mixed number. We leave it as an improper fraction. All right, number 10, again, we're just going to put in g is -1, h is -2. So we've got -1 is going to be cubed, and our h is -2, and that's going to be squared. When we evaluate our fractions, we're going to be careful because -1 cubed ends up being a -1. A negative times a negative is a positive. You multiply that by a negative again, and that's how we get the -1. And then negative 2 squared is positive 4. Okay, so now we end up with negative 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 4 is our final answer of 12. Okay. Number 11, we're going to plug in the values. We're not going to forget about our radical sign here. We've got 9 times 10 minus x squared. Well, our x is negative 3. There it is again. We've got to be careful. We're squaring the negative 3, which makes this negative 9 times 10 minus a positive 9. This is 90 minus 9. We end up with radical 81, and the square root of 81 is just 9. Okay, your final answer won't have the radical sign in it. All right, number 12, if we plug in the values, we've got 2, and then the absolute value bar of negative 8 squared plus 1. Okay, so negative 8 squared, again, you got to be careful, is going to be 64. 64 plus 1. So this becomes 2. If the number's right outside the absolute value sign, you're multiplying. It's the absolute value of 65. So you don't find the absolute value of what's inside the absolute value bar until you get to the very end. And the absolute value of positive 65 is just 65. So we end up with 2 times 65, which gives us a final answer of 130. Okay, so now's a good time to pause and maybe practice some of the order of operation problems on 2B. But I'm going to continue on because the second part of our lecture today was about verbal expressions. So we gave you a table here of key words and word problems that mean certain types of expressions or operations. So we have our addition, our subtraction, our multiplication, and division. You can see the key words that we have here. The word sum means to add, difference is to subtract, and times means to multiply, quotient is to divide. A number of other words are there, and this list can grow and evolve, okay? What's going to be important is that you realize the word quantity means that you're going to need some parentheses when you translate your expression. And the numbers will generally stay in order as you're reading it, except when you see the words from or less, okay? Or it's actually the word than. Than is really important. Let's write that in, okay? So the word than is important. So if I wrote an expression for each situation, a lot of these examples are saying the number. We don't know what the number is. So in all of these examples, I'm going to let x be equal to my number. Okay, and you can use any variable you want. Okay, so I'm letting x be my number. So if I had 8 times the cube of a number, we're actually taking 8, and the cube means taking that number and raising it to the 3rd power. So my expression would be 8x cubed. Okay, the sum of the square of a number, so here we have our number x, okay, and the square of it would be x squared and 4. So we would end up with x squared plus 4, the sum, the square of a number, and 4. Okay. 15, we have 10 times the sum of a number and 9. So anytime you take the sum of a number and 9, let's represent that as x plus 9. But since we're multiplying it by 10, we need to be really careful and make sure we put that sum in parentheses. So that way the whole sum is multiplied by 10. All right, and we leave it at that. Okay, 16 says 18 fewer than 3/4 of a number. Now here's our keyword than I was talking about just a little bit. So in most cases our numbers come in order, but in this case, because we have the word than, we take 3/4 of a number, which we would represent as 3/4 x, and 18 fewer than it would be minus 18. Okay, notice we move the 18 to the outside, to the right side. Okay, if it just said 18 fewer 3/4 of a number, then the 18 would come first. But that word than tells us to move the 18 after the expression 3/4 x. Okay, 17, we have the quotient. So as soon as I see the quotient word, I put a little fraction bar there. And it's of 8 and twice a number. So those are the two. Notice I just put them in order there. And then 2 subtracted from, here's that keyword from again. This is where it's going to change your order. We take the square of a number, and then we subtract 2. Okay? All right, so in the next 3 examples, we're actually, it says write an expression for each situation. I want you to be careful because number 19 is actually we're going to be writing an equation, not just an expression. Or I guess the expression could just represent it. So if the area of a garden, if the length is 2 feet longer than the width, okay, well, we know the width. We don't know the width, so we're going to let W be the width. Okay, but if we can write the length relative to the width, which we can in this case, so our length is actually going to be 2 feet more than the width. So we can write the expression W plus 2 to be the length. Now we know the area is represented by the length times the width. So we can take, or the width times the length. So if we take our W and we multiply it by W plus 2, okay, right there we can get our area. We can say the area is this, and it would always be feet squared would be our units. Okay. In number 20, if we had the total height of a 1 foot tall bird bath, if it's placed on a base that is B feet tall. So if it's on a base, here's your base, and it's B feet, and it's going to be 1 feet tall, the total height would just be B plus 1. Okay, so it's B plus, or 1 plus B. All right, because it's commutative, we can write it either way. All right, the amount of money you earn per hour if you make D dollars in 15 hours. So to figure that out, you just take the number of dollars and divide it by 15. And that's how much money you're going to earn per hour. And the number of minutes in H hours, well, we know there's 60 minutes in 1 hour, so in H hours, it would be 60 times H. Okay, so hopefully this helped and you can go ahead and get your homework done. Bye.